Today our guest is Ray Allen, Deputy Secretary of the Department of Financial Institutions. How you doing, Ray?
Good. Good to see you, JP.
Yes, sir. It's good to have you on the show, man. You've been one of our great customers that come to the shop, a professional expert at finance and everything else that you know. So I'm happy to have you on the show.
It's good to be here.
Yes, sir. So today we want to discuss the fiscal cliff. You know, we discussed it a little bit in the shop, and conversations be everywhere. You know, so I asked you to come in. I think you'll be a great person to explain what the fiscal cliff is and how it can affect us. So I guess in basic terms, what is the fiscal cliff?
Well, it's really barring congressional action. It's a series of spending reductions and tax increases that would occur effective this month, actually, if in fact Congress and the President don't come together to an agreement. It's part of it came out of an act that back in August of 2011, that the government had come together and talked about raising the debt ceiling. And as part of that, because they couldn't get an actual agreement, they raised the debt ceiling with a caveat that if in fact they didn't come to a long-term agreement on how they would handle spending, how they would handle taxes, that in December of 2012, a series of very grievous things would occur, which we call now the fiscal cliff, would occur this month if in fact they didn't reach agreement. Now, obviously they haven't reached agreement at this point, right. So we're kind of right on the cusp of some of these taking place. Okay.
Do you think that we'll come together and get this done?
I think it seems as if the President and the Congress have made some progress on it. Obviously, the issue becomes the Republicans in Congress want to not raise taxes. Right. The President wants to raise taxes on people $250,000 and above. Right. The Republicans want more entitlement cuts, Medicare, yes. Social Security, yeah. And the President seems to not have moved much on that. So they're still negotiating, but it seems every day that they're getting closer. If you look at the stock market, has continued to go up, so that's a good sign that they feel more comfortable that some resolution will occur.
Right. As a small business owner, how do you feel this will affect small business owners?
I think the real issue here is uncertainty, because the cuts become effective in December, or the tax increases become effective this month. So it really affects your taxes. It affects how they go forward. Obviously, the tax increases are pretty grievous. I mean, right. Most small businesses are transfer entities that, in essence, that they transfer the income from their business to their personal income taxes and use the individual tax rate. Correct. Those rates go up. They go up from the minimum rate of 10 to 15%. They go up from 25 to 28. So, in essence, the small business people will probably pay more taxes, which means they've got less operating capital, which means that it may affect, how they expand and how they hire.
Right. And I remember hearing, it can be like $4,000, per household, where it can affect, each home.
Yeah, in Wisconsin, if you use that as an example, I think the average family of four will have a minimum tax increase of about $2,200. Okay. Because your Social Security tax goes up. Yeah. From the reduction that was there, it goes up 2%, and then there's some other tax increases that go up. So it's going to have an effect. In the end, it takes money out of the economy. Right. And that's not a good thing, especially as we're trying to come out of a recession. Right.
Does the U.S. debt play a role in this fiscal cliff matter?
Well, it's all about debt. Okay. Really, we have the highest debt to gross national product being the total of goods, services, and salaries that the country spends. We have the highest debt ratio to that we've had in the last 70 years. Okay. We're at 70%. Now, as a comparison, Greece went at 160-some% and their economy collapsed, their government collapsed. I think Germany is at about 81%. Okay. Now, most economists will say once that debt to GNP reaches around 100%, you're in trouble. Okay. And we're on a course to do that. We're not there yet. Now, for most capitalized countries, we're probably reasonably good at this point. But this whole argument is about debt. Okay. It's about how we control debt and not reach that percentage where we create a very bad economy.
Okay. Do you feel that a compromise will be reached with this?
I think so. But remember, a lot of this has to do with just philosophically, what kind of government do we want to have? Right. Do we want to have entitlements in a large government, or do we want to have a government that's a lot smaller, that has tax positions that are a lot less? And I think they're coming to close to resolve that, but I think it has to do with how much tax increases we have and how much entitlement spending we reduce.
Are the Bush cuts a part of the negotiations?
Yes, they are. In effect, the Bush tax cuts were across the board. So here's the effect. Average middle income people, if in fact an agreement isn't reached, will face an additional tax hike other than Social Security, because the Bush tax cuts would expire and we revert back to the old rates that were under Bill Clinton. But the effect of that the president is trying to neutralize is to have that tax cuts increase for people making $250,000 and above, leave the Bush tax cuts in place for people that make income under that, which would probably cover 90% of the people in the United States. But if in fact we don't get to that point, there's a double whammy. Social Security increase, Bush tax cuts increase, which then raises that average family of four throughout the country to probably closer to a $3,000 to $4,000 a year tax increase.
Wow. Wow. So we need to get this together.
Yeah.
We need to get this together.
Yeah, the Congress, the Congress and the president, I think are moving in the right direction, but ultimately for the best interest of all of us and for this country, we need to come to a resolution that's fair and equitable to everybody.
What type of effect will the fiscal cliff have on individuals here in Wisconsin?
Well, the average family of four will have increased taxes of about $2,200. But the general effect is going to be a little bit more broader because, one, you're going to cut government spending. So it's going to affect programs like Head Start. It's going to affect aid to students. It's going to affect any program that has some sort of government subsidy, which in turn will have an effect on how we budget in the state for Wisconsin, because that means we've got to put more tax dollars where there aren't any federal dollars. So overall, that means an increase in taxes. That will basically, I think, slow even the growth here in the state, because you're going to take more money out of the economy because you've got to fund the entitlement programs.
Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with our viewers on this fiscal cliff matter?
Well, I think people have to remember, again, coming back, that this is a philosophical argument. It's about what kind of government we want to have. And recognize that if, in fact, the government doesn't reduce some entitlements in some form, and combine that with some tax increases, which would kind of balance it out, but without one or the other, when the government's borrowing large amount of money, going back to your point on debt, it takes money out of the economy. It means that the money that we have on credit cards, on business borrowing, the interest rates go higher. And it'll drive those interest rates up because the government's borrowing so much to continue its operations. So I think we just have to hope and pray that everybody, reasonable minds, can get together and come up with a reasonable solution, which is one of spending reductions and some tax increases.
So for our viewers, is it a website or some information where they can go to get more information on this?
I think anything that they could Google on the Fiscal Cliff will bring up a number of sites. Forbes magazine has some marvelous stuff. There's some things on the government, the basic news organizations can help them. I think what they need to be prepared to do is look at their own budgets. Because no matter what happens, the taxes are going to raise. That the Social Security tax is going to go back to its normal level, which is about a 2% increase from what's happening now. So that's going to have an effect on folks. They're going to have less take-home pay come January 1.
Wow. So we got to get prepared for that. Ray, I would like to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. We definitely had you back to educate our viewers on some more financial things.
That'd be more than happy to.
Our show today was sponsored by the Madison Times Weekly newspaper. Of course, Ray Allen is the publisher of that newspaper, and we appreciate you connecting the city of Madison with your newspaper also.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. My pleasure.